Sorry about that. That's kind of an awkward start. Welcome to the broadcast. Today I have Jerry Avalos. Jerry, he should be showing up here in a minute. You might want to take your yeah.
How's it going?
Good. How are you? I don't know why I'm not seeing you on the. Oh, I know what's happening. I got to change the. I gotta change the format here and bring you in. There you are. All right, welcome.
Thank you.
That wasn't the most solid, the most great opening right there. It's like slightly awkward, but oh well. All right, so today on Not My Rabbit Hole, my guest is Jerry Avalos, and the main reason that you're here today or tonight is to counter some of the things that Stephen D. Kelley said on Screw Big Gov with Stephen D. Kelley. Mm-hmm. But before we start, because you have a background with Stephen, and he did throw your name around quite a bit. And so I'm going to change my banner here. Actually, I'm just going to remove the banner because I don't know if we're going to show any footage today. It's just us doing an interview. But So first of all, you go by the title of Super Soldier Test Subject. And so can you kind of like clarify what that is or explain that for the listening audience that's going to be here eventually? We have one person. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily, put that on my name badge or anything, but yeah, well, I mean, and that's kind of what I would sort of categorize what seems like my experiences entailed, because I'm not I was never in the military, and by all rights and purposes, I didn't realize what was going on either. Like a lot of the stories were told, you know what I mean, because they do seem too far out. And for me though, when it became real, quote unquote, when I knew, it was like, oh no, this isn't these aren't just dreams. This isn't just some weird occurrence. Was because I started remembering specific stuff about bases that I haven't been to. Um, and I knew it was those bases because things would corroborate in the news. Like I'd very vividly be experiencing it, and then you would see like how I'll probably mention there's test flights out of Edwards, and that's one of the places that I would remember, and I would see it, and I would kind of be there, but I knew I wasn't necessarily physically there per se. Like, I mean, it was, but I was definitely seeing that, and I was definitely there, and it definitely tied in to some pretty far out stuff. And so like it kind of led me to believe, well, if that one part is true, let's find out if any of this other stuff is. You know what I mean, because I didn't kind of just come out thinking like, oh, reptilians won't run the world and all this other stuff. No, that's not how I started this either. Um, and
Let me ask you:
yeah.
Do you think that reptilians are going to run their world? I mean, do you? I mean, what do you think about the reptilian? I guess you can, let's call it a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, this is kind of where I think, a lot of people go ahead and put names on stuff where we can't really say, yes, we know that's what it is, right? And like how in my experiences have I seen things that you kind of consider a reptilian? Yeah. But now can I assert that that's the problem on this planet? No. Like it does seem like there's some extraterrestrial element that is sort of like antagonizing here. What that is, I don't know. Like, I mean, and that's because like that. This is where you kind of can tell who's full of crap and who isn't. It's like, who's asserting that they know all of it. Because if they are, then no. So, and same goes for myself, including like my experiences, and like even though they're very military like, but like it wasn't like I was in the military, and like a lot of these people who say like they had experienced something like myself, saying that they knew that they were part of XYZ detachment or regiment or blah, 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 blah. That's not what I experienced at all. No. Like I don't know if that's true. Maybe it does happen to some people, but like that's not me. Like I'm not gonna come at you with that crap. So I don't know. But what I do know is pretty far out. And subsequently, in terms of just who I am and what I do, it's like I've learned more and I've gone beyond that. But yeah, and it's wasn't like a great thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because for me, speaking about it initially, it had a lot to do with a certain level of activism, because like at the core of what bugged me was the fact that it seems like that our like some kind of our part of our government, or it's even more terrifying, what if it isn't our government, is kidnapping people and doing stuff to us. You know what I mean? And that was kind of more of like, there's only so many people speaking up about this, and that's kind of like I could. You know what I mean? And I did.
And so let me ask you, like, when you say like part of it was activism, okay, so you were having repressed memories of things that happened like on bases. And when you say bases, are you talking about military bases, or do you mean underground? Okay. So you're having these memories, you think they're dreams, but you realize they're memories, and you're realizing that there's articles in the paper that seem to be tracing some of the memories that you have. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you became concerned about people being abducted that you felt were being used like for military, for alien type of experimentation. What triggered you to realize that people were missing, or they might be missing, and it was at the hands of our government?
Well, and this is kind of where I'm like, I'm not even, like I said, this is where I'm not even sure if it's our government, because like how we from what I can tell, like there's more of like this private entity thing that kind of dominates everything, and isn't that what everyone kind of says? But it did involve like military bases, as well as like some commercial areas, like and we hear that too, right? Like in terms of industrial areas being used for some of this stuff. And it wasn't like I said, I didn't research it, but because what happened to me honestly was fucking terrifying. And it was super traumatizing, and that's kind of what I mentioned in the chat during the Stephen Kelley thing, where I'm like, I'm not looking to glorify my trauma. So anyone who's talking about their good old days on Mars, man, like, no, we ain't the same person. And like honestly, I think you're lying. Because it sucked. It made my life really bad, and because of it, I had things like constant migraines, and just other just not good stuff. Even when I was just trying to kind of make a living like most other people. But then once I seen kind of like how a lot of this tied together, because beyond just like this military stuff, just on a personal level, I had always had precognitive dreams, and I'm a natural astral projector, and kind of and a real time one too. So I can literally see what's going on the other side of the planet, whatever. And I know a lot of people say they can, and it's not easy though. I'm not saying like, oh, just test me right now. If you want to test me, yeah, give me a lot of money because I'm a professional, and I will do that, and I will wow you. Okay, but it has to be worth my time. And so yes, that's natural for me. And so there's always this sort of precognitive element that kind of let me know that these weren't just dreams, right? And then what subsequently would happen was, over there I was kind of like lured, because there was a character in that astral projected world that said, hey, I know that you like to play your games. Would you like to play some other games? And I'm like, so that's kind of where it started. And so I thought these things were games, but they really aren't. And it does tie into some people who are telling the truth. And like I said, it really just depends on the character, because no one has the full picture.
Okay, I have some interesting questions in the chat, and so I someone saying, ask me what I had for, ask him what I had for dinner.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm saying. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to convince you. I don't need to convince you. I don't care to convince you. I don't. So, because I don't need to, and because I am a professional. And honestly, that's not even where I get paid for. I get paid for software development right now. Like that's what I love to do. I want to make games. And see how this crap keeps pulling me back to even like people will show me what you can do. Da, 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 da. Well, I don't care. I don't have to prove anything to you, man.
Okay. So the main thing is, and again, and when we're talking about astral projection, and even if you bring up, having psychic abilities, I do believe I think, and it's obvious that there has been the military has used psychic people in the military. That's what the whole movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, is about. So there is a validity to people who have special abilities that way have been used, and that does and that is confirmed in terms of like using remote viewing and things like this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dispute that. And here I especially didn't have you come on the show so that you could be put on display and then have everybody like shoot down who you are. The main reason that I wanted to invite you is your history with the Carrie Cassidy and Stephen D. Kelley, and this type of media. So first of all, let's start where. How did you get involved in doing media about this topic? And then my second question would be, how did you get involved with Carrie Cassidy? So let's start with how you got involved. Is that all in one or separate? So how did you get involved in becoming part of this media way back when?
Yeah, actually, I met Carrie first. That would have been, well, it really kind of started really working with Carrie in some capacity in 2011. And mostly helping with the tech side of things, and then assisting
how did
their
you
web
meet
admin.
her? I mean, how did you meet her at all, Carrie?
Well, they were putting on the Wake and Aware down here in Orange County, and they needed volunteers, and so I'm like, yeah, definitely, I'm down. And they needed people to help do this audio tech and stuff like that. So at the time I was in a band too, so I was used to running kind of audio stuff just for hobby anyways. And I'm like, yeah, this sounds fun.
What kind of music did your band play? I'm distracted, but what kind of music did you do? What's the name of your band? Tell me.
It was Apathy. And we
Apathy.
We played a type of I guess you can kind of call it math metalish. I mean, we were heavily influenced by like Tool, things like that.
Okay. I like
a drum
Tool.
teacher with Danny too, so you can kind of see the musical kind of similarities, but we're not nowhere near as good as them. Like, no, I didn't say it doesn't work like that. _. I just said I'm not going to work for free for you. Okay, there's a difference.
Like he's saying, yeah, it doesn't work like that. He's kind of like, I think _. is defending you against because the other people like,
okay.
Yeah. So, Okay, so the band and then Carrie. So were you already, was it because you were already watching her show and were interested in what she was doing? And so you found out that they needed help. And so you decided to help with her. Was watching her a part of you realizing about yourself or how?
Yeah, absolutely. Because actually when I first started talking, it was actually on message boards because I wanted to see who was sorry, dot underscore. Yeah, you know how sometimes text is lost in translation. Sorry about that. But any haters, like, yeah, that's absolutely at you. So, but either way, yeah, because I started on message boards, and but I didn't start just going, oh, this is my thing. No, I watched because I was like, because it sounds far out, so I totally get where some people come from, like Ed Dungery in there. You know, I get where you're coming from, buddy. I really do. I'm on your side though. Trust me, okay? Because it gets into that. Because what I would observe and I would see who's full of crap, who isn't. There's a lot of different things going on because I was also sort of at that point pulling away from that stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's ugly. You know what I mean? And you get tired of seeing it. And then there's resistance that happens. And so I was past that resistance part. And that was a whole saga, right? And so this is where I started seeing other people like echoing similar stuff. And they did not want to go on camera. They did not want to share it. They would just chime in from time to time and say, you know, hey, no, that really did happen to me. And I don't want people to know. And that's why I'm on this message board anonymously. You know what I mean? And so then they leave, you know, breadcrumbs too. And you kind of see some links to tangibility. And that's kind of where, for myself, like I saw that very few people were mentioning like certain things over here in Southern California at that time. And so this is where eventually Carrie's material started. Like these ran to people like Dan Burrish, for instance, and he's had some roots over here in Southern California, and ended up talking about some technology that sounded very, very similar to what I experienced.
This is like, I just want to kind of, I think people are like, oh, I wasn't mean to be hateful. I just need proof. So that's okay. I mean, we knew these questions. I mean, we know these questions are going to be happening. And so, we realize that you're not being hateful. I mean, you're just, I think people used to ask me when I said I was a stand-up comedian and they go, tell me a joke. And I would just hate that. I'm just like, no, it's a whole routine.
Yeah, like you said, I have to work for you for free.
Right, and it's like, and I would just like sometimes I'd be on the plane and I go, like, people, what do you do? And I'm like, I just would make it up sometimes, oh yeah, I'm a secretary or something, just so that I would have to like go tell me a joke, or because people they just think that you're ready to go on at any moment when in fact you don't have the right elements. So it's not exactly the same. Okay, so. You did the Awaken Aware conference, and that's how you met Carrie Cassidy. And then what happened from that point?
Well, I got to know, not so much Carrie was super busy, but Tommy, her basically kind of like tech manager for the most, like every website to just law of everything coordinator. He handled a lot of it. He was almost more of a general manager, and we hit it off really well. And both of them liked how I worked, and I was interested because they did meet a lot of interesting people, and subsequently, yes, I got to be part of some of those interviews where we met some really interesting people, and so it was an awesome opportunity. And actually over that time I did get to know Carrie a little bit more. I can't say we're like best buddies or anything, but I'd say we're friends. You know what I mean? We're friends enough. Like and we don't always agree. You know what I mean? And even behind the scenes when I was working more as their kind of like a secondary tech help as well as a type of security for them. And so that kind of leads into like Stephen Kelley's BS later down the road. But yeah, and so this is kind of where, like, stuff like the money and things like that. Like I have seen like how the money works in Project Camelot. And
well, I mean, and so how does it work? How does the money work in Project Camelot? That you can say.
And this is something that and I know that like those who have worked with Carrie will feel me on this, is that like it's almost frustrating. Like it's frustrating that she doesn't think about money more. like there was when I first came in, because I my professional background at the time was making websites and doing graphic design and things like this for different businesses and creating logos, branding for them, stuff like this. And so that was one of the things. They're like, hey, can you help us with that too? I'm like, sure. And so I'm looking at this and I'm going like, your guys' revenue channels are like non-existent. Like when you can easily be commoditizing, like, you know, your merchandise, you can, even if it's a relative donation kind of scenario, still having these money channels to come in. And it was like, I guess, because Carrie is very busy doing what Carrie does, trying to find this content, trying to do. And so, like, sometimes prying her away to get to these money things was just so frustrating. And so people say she's just about money. Like, no, man, like, no, like she could be, but she's not.
Because a lot of people are under that impression, you know, like, I mean, that's like one of the things that, I mean, obviously if she had Google's AdSense, if she was monetized for a bit on YouTube, which I'm suspecting that she was, she probably made a pretty decent amount of money from that because she was getting, you know, quite a few hits. A lot of people, like, for example, Jeff is saying Project Camelot money goes to Carrie's European trips. And yeah, okay, so
it's how content gets made, yeah. So yeah,
I mean, you know, there was a lot of times where you would watch Carrie asking for donations. I'm going here. I have to get to there. I really need this money for this project and that project. And I think that people did donate a lot for her that way. I know that say Sean David Morton was able to get a lot of donations, even at a time. One time I had a really sick cat, and he just put it out there on his, you know, one time, and I just got like literally nearly $600 like that, you know, to help with that cost. So I think they are people that can fundraise in terms of donations. Do you know if Carrie was an actual, was she ever a nonprofit?
No, I'm just laughing at Geoff's comment there about Captain Mark Richards. And this is what I'm saying. Not everyone agreed on certain things behind the scenes either.
That is true. You know what? I might even like. Hey Jeff, I even saved that Facebook. Let me bring that up really quick, Jerry, while we're here. You know, I still have the share on. What do I have the share on still for? That's bizarre. That's why I didn't see you right away. I forgot to take the share off. Here, let me bring up like a really quick graphic of Joanne's Facebook page where she's announced her divorce from Captain Mark Richards. Because now that is one thing that a lot of people, and myself included, is that was a real big scam for them, right? I mean, let's interview it. Let's film myself outside of the prison of where, you know, the Sacred Space program captain is. I can't bring a camera in there or record anything. So I'm going to repeat what he just said to me by memory. And the thing of it is that we all believed her. Not we all believed her, but a lot of people believed her while she did that. You're saying, you know, it's like who accepts that, really, right?
And this is kind of where it is. There are spy games that go on. Right. So like there is legitimately like people who are very connected insiders that might contact, and there are some like that. And so some of them are very real. And so some of them will say for some reason, just go listen to this person. They don't say why. They just say go listen to them. And so it gets kind of weird in that sense. And so and I'm not saying that's what happened with Richards, but and that came a little bit after I really wasn't working with Project Camelot anymore. It was a relatively short stint there. It was probably like maybe about a year, and little residual beforehand, stuff like that. And then since like we've remained in contact, so it wasn't like a horrible breakup or anything. It was more like, you know, there was just circumstance and especially in my case, because this is where the invention thing came up and, you know, started happening and life got even zanier. But yeah, with Carrie though, I mean there is like donors that obviously help keep her from starving, at least what I saw from before, but it's not like a lot of money. I mean, it's like it's just but yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that we would that's why, you know, we would try to encourage, like, hey, let's try to monetize some stuff a little bit more, so you don't have to keep asking for the donations. And there just takes a certain level of follow through on there when you're running on a skeleton crew. It's like just weren't able to execute. But and then there's other things like how people, okay, like how I don't know if they still do this, but like somebody who goes and sells videos at different conventions across the country, like actually does sell Project Camelot videos on, like, the like thumb drives now, and they'll just send Carrie some money from the sales.
Uh-huh.
So there's things like that, and so there's little plinks in the bucket. So it's like, is from what I see. I don't know if it's changed now. Hopefully, Carrie's a lot more comfortable now. Like,
I mean, and this was like when you were, inspiring her to, like, monetize and this and that, blah blah blah. What year was this?
That would have been 2011.
Okay, so from when she first started. So I think, like, when people are talking about her now about making a lot of money and getting all these donations and stuff like that, when she grew, and plus, let's admit that probably her coining the French super soldier, right, and starting these super soldier forums now probably helped her make more money and raise her interest on YouTube and this and that. Let's talk about when you met Stephen D. Kelley and how, and then also I want to get into the Henderson, Nevada event after that. So how did you when did you first meet Stephen D. Kelley?
I guess that would have been like around close to 2012, I think, something like that. And I want to say I heard him on some maybe Revolution or something, one of the first kind of things he did or something. And he mentioned being in Southern California, and so I kind of paid more attention. And then he did still have his ebook at the time, and so I checked it out, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not like, oh, this is really happening, but I'm like, well, it's interesting, and I was working with Carrie at the time, and so I showed this to Tommy. I'm like, hey, Tommy, like, what do you think about this dude? People are listening to him. What do you think? And he's kind of like, yeah, we could talk to Carrie about it, and then that's kind of how that progression really went. And subsequently, because he was he was in Southern California, eventually met him. I can't remember like where first, but he because I knew the laser product that he was talking about, right? Because even back when it was actually like in production, like I do recall seeing it and checking it out and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, it's
are you talking about his gun, the Law Gun 17 laser? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what year was this when you guys started talking to each other, would you say?
That would have probably been like okay, let me see. That would have probably been like close to 2012. Like I said, either not like late 2011 or early 2012, something like that.
Okay. Did he contact you or did you contact him?
We contacted him. I contacted him first, technically.
Okay. What interests you? What was interesting to you about him? Why were you interested in contacting him?
Well, content for Project Camelot for sure. Like, and then like I said, the personal interest in terms of like, okay, he's in Southern California, he's talking some mad crap. I kind of want to know what's up. Because this also wasn't necessarily like the first like kind of disinformation effort I've seen, and so I was kind of also weighing him. So especially if you're in Southern California, that was like kind of thing I would do back then. Because there is a lot of disinformation, and like even like how you're talking about the original super soldiers, like I'm sure like Duncan probably would say no comment or whatever, but they have a conglomerate story, that their story that they're sharing isn't all theirs, and is some of it, is it part of it true? Yeah, but it's not their truth. And so there's these kinds of things that happen on a concerted level, and I was trying to figure out too, was Stephen one of these concerted level kind of things? And no, he's more of like a loose cannon, is from what I can tell. But yeah, no, he's but and this is kind of where I had mentioned, like, because at one point there was his behavior just like just kind of not anything you want to be around, honestly. like especially as like any like sincere business person, and then let alone some of these other discrepancies I noticed. So at one point I grilled him. I was like, okay, dude, like, so I mean, I've been to the Getty. I'm like, where was the entrance to the underground part? You know what I mean? I know you go up the tram. You go. Can you take the tram, or do you have to go to the car? Oh, okay. You can just go into the normal way. Okay, so where in which part of the wing? Oh, you don't remember. You don't remember which wing of the Getty that you went to. Oh, okay. Well, who was with you? Who else was your brother there? Oh, okay, your brother's there. How many other people? You know, there's all these questions that you couldn't do, and so eventually, like how during your stream, like you said, it's not about the truth; it's about controlling the narrative. That exact same thing that you had said that he said before came out of his mouth too, and he said he never went down there. It was his brother that went down there, and it sounded to me more like they were mad. He was mad about not getting a contract than he actually saw any shenanigans going down. And doesn't that kind of sound like Steven to make up a bunch of crap because you piss him off? Like,
I mean, yeah, he can do that, or he can. Let's just say he can be vindictive, especially on somebody that he perceives as a threat. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about, like, you know, calling CPS on somebody or whatever. You know, like if he feels that it's going to threaten his credibility, or his situation. I have witnessed that later on, after knowing him, like later on. So were you recruiting people? I mean, were you looking for talent for Carrie at one point, or was Steven just somebody that you saw and you just said, oh, here, you might be interested in this guy?
Yeah, I mean, passively, yes, because it wasn't like, for instance, like necessarily Tommy and my job to go and like find people to put on camera. No, it was just kind of like, you know, just in our own sort of research, looking around, listening to stuff. Like if we came across something that you know, knowing, you know, that that there's certain least level of substance there, you know what I mean, to kind of maybe present to Camelot was the thing. So it wasn't like I said, like our job per se now, but yeah, so that was kind of how that happened, unfortunately, I guess.
So
yeah.
when you met Steven the first time, did he bring the gun? Did you see the gun that he was talking about?
He didn't have any of the lasers left. Like, he had a lot of components for lasers left, which is why we were talking about maybe some potential entrepreneurial kind of projects at first. Because at first, like, he was kind of acted pretty much normal, like, you know what I mean? And if you don't know the background, you're kind of like, oh, okay, you know, he seems relatively, like, you know, reasonable. But it's just later, you know what I mean? Like, as time goes on, you hear little things, or especially if he gets drunk or high, it's like then it really starts coming out, and then you're like, whoa. And there was too many of those, and then it culminated in this really, really embarrassing event, and that's kind of where I'm like, no, dude, we're done. Like, just don't anything with me. Like, and don't bring me up either. Like, I'm not going to go on an anti-Kelley rampage, but don't bring me up. And he brought me up. So now I'm like, don't bring me up saying that it's because the Bilderbergs are trying to get you from that thing. That was a lie. Like, so don't bring me up in that lie. Like, because that's not how it happened.
Yeah, he did. I should have probably brought that clip up, but for those of you that want to know what Jerry's talking about, in Steven's, you know, I wouldn't call it an interview, but Steven expressing himself why he was so upset that he wasn't put on, you know, the truth tour that was happening. Right? That's basically like, here, let's hear what you have to say. We might let you on the, you know, let it out. Maybe we missed you or whatever. The guy was being pretty courteous, although the title of the show is like, Stephen D. Kelley goes after me, talks crap about me, and, you know, Carrie Cassidy, you know, this kind of stuff. But so he was talking about this Bilderberger event that Carrie Cassidy was on the outside, on the fringe festival part, interviewing people, and he made it sound like she was a Bilderberger. She was in the meeting. She called him from the meeting and said, they're wanting to take you out or something like that. And then somehow he drops your name. and in that, and so why is he even dropping you in that mix? Were you there with her at the Fringe Festival? Were you part of it? Like, what was why were you even brought up in that scenario?
That's why I like how Carrie was even puzzled too, because like at that point, yeah, we had cut ties. Like he wasn't even part of what was going on with any Camelot or us at that point, because this was after, like I said, he had really messed things up, or within this maybe week or 2 weeks time span where like we hadn't got all of his stuff out yet. You know what I mean? and that and had nothing to do with him at all. Like, and there was no call to Stephen Kelley. Like Carrie had no business, as far as we knew, with Stephen Kelley at that point. And that Bilderberg meeting, like, or event thing, was kind of like this pseudo protest, like offshoot thing that they were doing, like at the Bilderberg, like outside of the Bilderberg location. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't even think Carrie, it was like someone who also organized it, and Carrie was invited there to speak. And so yeah, that whole thing about the Bilderbergs like putting a hit out on him, no, complete lie, complete freaking lie. So at that, like, and yeah, it was, yeah, she's just not there anymore, man. Like, what can I say?
Okay, so yeah, and you know, he has told that story for years. Like, I'm just letting you know. I mean, I didn't always put you. I mean, I normally didn't. Yes, I know. I mean, he didn't, like, I didn't hear your name in it so much, but like that has been something that's part of his narrative, in, you know, how important and, you know, you know, how dangerous he is, whatever, you know, how important he is and everything, that he's on the Bilderberger list, and that Carrie Cassidy even called me. Yeah. No, I remember that particular
like,
event.
Thank you for that. It's like,
yeah. All the time. He's saying that all the time. It's part, yeah, it's part of what makes him Stephen D. Kelley, and you know, gives him credibility. He uses it for credibility. Yeah, Jeff is saying Stephen lied. I simply can't believe that. Yeah,
and this is where, like, how I mentioned, like, okay, you know, he's not going to be able to get me for liable, like, because ultimately it was the drug use that was the issue. And so at that time, he would have been heavily drugged out, because, you know, and I have no, like, if you take drugs and I don't know, good job. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's your business. But it's like, if you're taking these drugs and you're just like making stupid moves, acting like you're, because freaking zombie, dude, get out, dude. Like, you can't handle it. Get out.
Okay. And when we talk about like narcotics, right? Mm-hmm. What are we talking about specifically? Are we?
We're talking meth. I mean, it was basically the meth. When you have the meth pipe there, it's like, okay, man. And you know, like, I'm not, okay, there's a lot of functional meth users, or else roads wouldn't be built. Okay. But this guy was not one of them. And especially, like, we don't want to know. I don't want to know. Like if when it gets to a certain level of use, right? But and then you can also tell. And this guy, like, was just gone, man. And
how did you know? I mean, did you ever witness it? Did you ever witness it?
Yeah, okay. And like I said, I knew that he couldn't handle it. Yes, like.
See, okay, so like you've told me something. I remember what you told me. Do you feel comfortable sharing that incident here tonight?
The actual thing?
What that actually happened? Yes, yeah. Okay, let's go.
Okay, because we're having a business meeting, because there is like this invention in the background. Like, trust me, it's like there's more cooler stuff going on later in life. And so we're having a meeting with a fairly wealthy individual who came to the area to meet with us about this technology, right? And we walked back into that the affluent person's bedroom. Like, I wasn't there earlier. They're hanging out there earlier, or whatever. I guess Kelley stayed back with the sort of girlfriend that he had. They were smoking it up. We get back to the bed. They're obviously having sex in the dude's bed. They're all wasted out of their mind. Like we're like, Steven, what the fuck, dude? And like, he's kind of like, huh? Like, looking like, like meth monstered out, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like bad. And and then this chick gets all irate, man, and we had to tell them both, like, dude, like, calm down. Like, there's a lot of the rest of us who weren't like that, and especially those of us who are trying to have this meeting, with this individual who came from out of state and all this other stuff like that, and yeah, technically at that time I was kind of handling security, so I kind of had to like calm everyone down, because it was,
so the guy was gonna. Okay, so when you say his bed, was it a hotel room bed that he was in?
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy so Stephen was with his girl doing right and they walk in and the guy's like, get out. So he was getting aggressive on him, wanting to, right?
Well, it wasn't even him. It was mostly the chick. Like,
Really?
He was so blasted. Like, he's kind of like, justification. I'm this, that, and so he's kind of, and it was her had to calm the hell down. And like, we can obviously see like everything, the paraphernalia everywhere, right? And it was kind of like, we just kind of to calm them down and just say like, you messed up. So like, don't keep messing up. And everyone here wants you guys to quiet down because everyone else might call the cops or something. And who's going to look good in that scenario? You know what I mean? So they did start calming down because it's like, you're the ones that messed up here. Don't start getting irate in someone else's hotel room. You know what I mean? So you had to just illustrate that to these very high individuals and eventually calm down. And
what year was this? What year was this?
This would have been into 2012.
Had he gone to the Super Soldier Summit yet?
Yeah, the Super Soldier Summit thing happened, yes.
Okay,
it would have been relatively shortly after that. I would say maybe like within a couple of weeks after that, 2-3 weeks after that.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so he blew it there, right? So that I'm assuming, did that blow the whole entire project with the wealthy guy and everything like that, or was that able to be repaired in any way?
We're able to repair that. And because a lot of these affluent people, they've seen very wild things too, and especially if they're different business owners, they've had to contend with very intense things, and so it's like, yes, they.
No, Vanessa's saying that it was 2013 August.
2013.
Okay.
It had to been getting pretty close to there. That's right. Yeah. And so either way, it wasn't too much longer after that Super Soldier Summit. It was because that's where we had made some of the connections that ended up manifesting into that meeting. And it wasn't with Kelley. It really had nothing to do with Kelley. Like, that's kind of why it was like, I'm not even sure why he was there, honestly. So, because like I said, I showed up a little bit later, and that's kind of like I said, I didn't get to that hotel room until that incident happened. But no, that's how that happened. But yes, it was after.
Wow, that's just embarrassing. That's embarrassing for him, really, and then also I can imagine him, I would think, I don't know about maybe you, but it would be embarrassing to me to know that somebody that I brought in, had done something like that. It's a very awkward situation, and it's disrespectful to do that into somebody else's hotel room on top of it. It's all the way around, right? I think anyways, but okay, so I want to ask you also about the Super Soldier event that he's talking about. I think because it seems like Kelley dropped your name like a couple of times that night. Was it Jerry Avalos? I don't know why he's always referring to you. And I can remember when, in some of the conversations, I'd hear him talk to people. Well, that was back when I was working when I was with Jerry Avalos. And I guess maybe this other radio network, Edward Sanchez or
Anthony.
Anthony Sanchez. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that was Scepter. It was around for a little while there that Anthony had made and produced. And, yeah, it was another, kind of independent alternative radio kind of thing with paranormal and conspiracy stuff on there. Anthony is an aficionado of both for sure. Has a couple of books out, things like this, and yeah, no, he's in the background there, and there was a radio station there for a little bit there in that sense, and there was some things that we're looking at maybe pursuing, Steve and I, in terms of like, because he does know how to make lasers. Like, at least he kind of, there's certain things you can kind of tell he actually can do. Like, can he shoot a gun? Yeah, he can shoot a gun. Can he take one apart and put it back together? Yeah, he can do that too. But certain other things like astral projecting, blah, 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 no, he can't. He sucks at all that. He's not one of those people. Like, he says he is, but he's not. And yeah, he's just like, oh, bad things happen to people. Dude, shut up. Like, shut up, Steven. Shut up. He is not even like that. Like, he's but yeah. And that's kind of where, like, even the super soldier thing, like I mentioned, like, he wasn't technically invited. Tommy and I were supposed to be there. And I was one of the invited guest speakers. And then it was, once again, this is that beginning time of Stephen Kelley's kind of like, entrance into things. And so we're like, yeah, sure, whatever, come along, and we'll talk to the organizer and see what they think. And so they did give Steven some time there, but he was not like a featured speaker at all. He was not a key character at all. Did he hang out with like all like Max and Casbolt and all them? Nope, he did not. Okay, so like when he's like, oh, like, no, he didn't.
So was he there by himself, or was the girlfriend there, or who was with him at that event?
It was just him. Like, I want to say that I think it was him and Tommy may have had a room there, because I know he didn't have the luxury of his own freaking room at that point.
And who's Tommy again? Who's Tommy?
Tommy, I guess. Currently, I think he still does handle like the web infrastructure, like the data. Like, he's not necessarily the web master, but like he set up like all the servers, all the services on Project Camelot. He used to do the web mastering stuff, but someone else does that now. He comes in for like the heavy lifting in terms of the back end stuff of the Project Camelot site.
Now, when he was at the Super Soldier event in Henderson, Nevada, had he already been on Kerry Cassidy? Because there was an interview that Kerry Cassidy did with him, and then it was really hard to find. It seemed like all when you Googled it, all you could find was the transcript of the interview. Why was that? Did she take his interview down because of maybe what happened, with, or because I wasn't there, like he was a security guard and he's claiming he didn't get paid. I mean, it seems like what is that all about? Too.
That was also fake. Yeah, there's a couple of questions that, like, number one, I don't know why this down, but I do know that there was some stuff that was lost that still kind of has to be like republished. Like, because I know they had an issue with the website, then YouTube like destroyed a lot of the archives. It is backed up on a different database, but it's like there was a lot. So, and that's some of the stuff that like Tommy might like they would go in and try to write the script to swap everything in and out and blah blah blah. So, if maybe it was one of those. Because I think she did another talk with Steven over there too, if I'm not mistaken. But there was, I think that Steven was on her radio show first. Like it's like he didn't go like when we're like, hey, check this dude out. I think Carrie invited him on the Revolution Radio.
Okay, that would make sense.
Yeah, it wasn't like a video. Like we didn't go set up to do the video thing there. I think the first video one would have been at the Super Soldier event. I think that's where she did like a 20-minute thing with them or something like that. It wasn't that long.
I've never seen, but you know what? I've never seen a video from that Super Soldier event based on Steven. I mean, there's a couple of videos of him speaking, I think someplace in Irvine, and he does a couple of stuff about the Getty and stuff like that. The Getty had no children under it then.
That was the event that Tommy and I produced. and I think that was a 2012 event or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And then the one that he was talking about with the security thing, that was in 2013. Um, and once again, he was part of the security, but he was not head of security. He liked to pretend he was, but see, like I was literally already doing that job for Project Camelot. So and yeah, so it's like, yeah, no, you weren't. Like you were in charge of certain things. Like for instance, like how he wanted to be, you can call it like the VIP protect. So like anyone who they wanted some kind of bodyguard or some kind of other presence around it, he kind of wanted to be in charge of that, and I'm like, that's fine. Um, I don't care. And so yeah, that's kind of how that went. But was he paid for that? Yeah. Like I don't remember what it was, but yeah, no bills were not paid there. You know what I mean? There was no debts in that one. Um, and
He says that his son was, a bodyguard too, and
his son was no. Like,
that's what he says. He says, yeah, he says
he's such a liar. Like
right,
at that
like
event,
he said,
no.
yeah, me and my son also didn't get paid by Carrie Cassidy from it, and that she still owes them money is and he's said that for quite a few years. I mean, to me at least, that
unless there's a different event that came after that 2013 thing that he was working with her then maybe. But if he's talking about that was it, I think that was an Awake and Aware as well in LA, in Glendale. And at that point, yeah, no, that's not like it was it was a relatively like skeleton crew even there, because it's like there was already hotel security, so it wasn't like we needed a bunch of extra bodies. It was more like he's the person that's also supposed to alert like the actual license to carry everything people. Not but if you want to take a bullet for Preston Nichols, then by all means, dude, like that's fine. But that was more of his role. But yeah, and like I said, there was no debts in there. I mean, and they actually even cleared the hotel bill. You know what I mean? It's like, it's harder than you think. I think a lot of people, once again, like, oh, we can make so much money, and that's Carrie gets all of it, and then she buys Benzes and stuff. No, it's like, it's barely worth the time, honestly. Like it takes a big chunk out of your year to plan those things, from even what I experienced.
All right, so I want to get back to the. I might change the title of this video eventually and make it more like, you're talking about Steven, because basically that's the main reason for the interview, right? But about just. Let me specify one more time about being the super soldier test subject. When you say that, do you mean like in terms of Carrie Cassidy? Like you felt that you had some experiences that were similar to other people, and that you have the ability to do astral projection to a very in-depth level that you feel that maybe you were used for some reason, right? Am I in the right ballpark in saying that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, but you were test subjects, so you never really became like a super soldier in terms of like Carrie Cassidy. Is that what you mean by using that description?
No, not necessarily, because even Carrie would qualify too. That it has to do with the offshoot of the MK Ultra stuff, which they called the super soldier stuff, which was derived from like a paperclip thing, if I remember correctly. And it was in German or something, and that's where the translation turns into like super
Operation Paperclip MK Ultra into the United States. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a like all encompassing kind of moniker for the subject, I would say, more than it is a description of certain individuals. Like even at that super soldier summit, quote unquote, there was people, like at least there was some that were in the military, and they actually were still active, and they still did have more grounded stories that and once again, that's not what's sensational though. You know what I mean? And even
and so are any of those people like that were at that event, that summit, that were actually in the military, that were deployed, are they anyone that we would know out of that the famous group that we know of?
No.
Did they speak? at the event, but they
Yeah.
weren't picked up to be like on the, the Super Soldier gravy train,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Because it
Were
was
they-
obvious that they wanted a certain Hollywood look. Like I said, they're good-looking white people. That's what they want. They want to hear the outlandish stories about, like, the children under the Getty and the reptilians, they're eating babies and blah 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 blah. And it's not, whose fault is that? That's the audience at large. It's in this demographic, or else why would they do it? So because no one tunes in for the real stuff, because it's ugly, and it's complicated, and and some of it's very advanced, like how you could even do it. And so some people are like, oh, I don't believe it happens. Well, guess what? Some stuff goes beyond your belief, and it can be explained, including things like psychic stuff. Not by Stephen Kelley, obviously, but other, genuine researchers, genuine experiencers can, to some degree. You know what I mean? And but like I said, it's not like the greatest story. And like I said, when you really live the trauma, like, you're not sitting there want to make yourself the hero in the replay of it on screen. You know what I mean? Like, ugh. At least most of us. And that's kind of where you see Stephen Kelley, though, didn't experience these things, and he makes himself the narcissist, pariah, martyr extraordinaire. And yeah, like, so yeah, and I hope, honestly, and this if he listens to this, or if any supporters listen to me say this, like, yeah, Kelley, just don't comment on what I'm saying. Just don't comment on it. Don't say anything about me. Don't say my name. I'm not threatening you. But I'm just saying, you're gonna make yourself look more ridiculous, and I'm gonna make fun of you more.
Yeah.
And like, because it's unnecessary. And like I said, and he's lying, like that thing about Carrie, like, yeah, no, like, unless there's another event, like I said, could be wrong about that, have to be corrected. Bilderbergs did not, like, she didn't call, say Bilderbergs are trying to make a hit on you, and yeah, in terms of that security stuff, he wasn't the head of security. He, as far as I know, he got compensated whatever was agreed upon. So, like, those kind of things. And like I mentioned, like, I did grill him, and he did admit to me that he lied about the psychics under the Getty. He lied to me about,
he admitted that to you.
Yeah.
That he lied about the psychics under the Getty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When did that happen, that he said that to you?
This would have been shortly before that whole incident at the hotel. And this is kind of where in a sense, I kind of like, I definitely let him, because he's not like I say, he's not the first disinformation thing I've kind of blew up.
So basically, he admitted that he never went underneath the Getty. He never.
Yeah.
I remember you said that earlier today, that it was really his brother, not him.
Yeah.
So
because
he wow. So he just adopted that whole story for himself.
Well, absolutely, yeah, and how it's expanded now. And now I'm not saying that there isn't tunnels, there isn't, like, or there isn't these cultists who do bad things. Yeah, that does exist. Yes, it does. But, like, does Stephen Kelley know all of it? No. And is he this, like, Jedi or whatever? No, he is not. And like, yeah, you can say I've tested him. You know what I mean? And yeah, he could try to test me now. He's like, oh, bad things will happen in Jerry. No, nothing worse. You can't do it to me. Like, he can't. He won't.
When you is there, when you say you tested him, what would that entail? If you were like, just you're testing him in this conversation to find if it's valid, or is there like a test that a person can take that would prove whether or not they were psychic, or they could astral project? Is there a standard way of figuring that out?
Well, I don't know about standard, because, like, that's all kind of, there's, there is more standardized stuff, like the remote viewing protocols. You know what I mean? That's different from just, like, people talking about clairvoyancy and this and that. There's, like, actual protocols for remote viewing, which, yes, you can quantify it, and you can find out who's more psychic. Absolutely, yes. Now that exists. And even knowing some of those techniques, and kind of like unconsciously to him, kind of testing him on certain things, like, yeah, no, he doesn't have that ability. And then now, in terms of the astral projecting thing, now this is something that, like, how that tested, someone says, oh, well, I'll test you on that right now. Test me on this one right now. For instance, you can telepathically connect in the dream world, and you can communicate messages. Very poignant, very clear. You can use numbers and everything. Don't worry. Okay. And I know how to get there. And so do other people. And so, like, Kelley, can you get there? You can't. And if he can't get there, and I know people who can do this, they know what that means, that what I could see then too. That means I can kind of see like a lot of his defenses, a lot of these other things, a lot of the things he was hiding. And this is where you hear from different, you can say kind of like government psychics, things like this. It's like you can't hide things. Like this is kind of where it does bridge into that. And like, yeah, some of us are real in that sense. And yeah, I saw what he does. And like I said, I'm not looking for anyone to believe me. I'm just saying, like, if I had Kelley coming at me in a truly adversarial way, I'm not worried. Like, oh, at all. Like, oh, I got millions of Arabs. No, you don't, dude. Shut up. No, you don't have millions of people. Shut up. Yeah,
are you talking about the millions of Arabs that are tuning into him from Syria, or or I guess they're not always not they're Syrian, not Arab, but where did the Arabs come from? Because I know that he's interviewed people in Syria, and he's also interviewed people. Well, I guess he did a little bit in Palestine, but and then the Ukraine. I kind of find. What I find interesting about Stephen in terms of, because one of the reasons why I thought he was legitimate in the beginning, of course I was incredibly naive, but, he did have the gun business. And, when I went to his house, he showed me the gun. He showed me his magazines that, how the gun was featured in the magazines. And he had a book. And hi, Baby Fist. Welcome to the Super Soldier Show.
Charge those tunnels of Mars.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk about Super Soldier stuff. He had the book, right? I guess when you write a book about yourself, then I think maybe people think that's more legit. Your book may be full of bullshit, but the fact that there was a book documenting your life,
and honestly, white too, and white, because I like it's true. Like it's.
I was thinking about the white thing actually, Jerry.
Absolutely.
When I had your picture, I go, look, man, finally a Latino that's in like some psychic, something, that Super Soldier something. It's like I feel like. I was thinking about how the Super Soldier program is very white. It's all white. I was going to say actors, but they're not. I mean, they're not including equity in this. They're not giving the full. Where are the transgender, Super Soldiers? They're
because they're fake. That's why. Because they're fake. Because this and I've met some very real people who've been in some very far out stuff, and I've since collaborated with some of them. And yeah, they look like regular people, and they don't look like they're models, white models. Talking about once again charging the thing on Mars after 20 years and back. And no, that's part of the propaganda machine. And like we're seeing that this whole idea of pervasive electronic mind control attenuation, like kind of the idea of entrainment through this stuff it's not outlandish, and it's happening, honestly. And this is one of those people like, oh, you're one of those people. It's like, yeah, I'm one of those people who happens to have a patent on frequency applications, so you might want to listen to me on it. I don't know. So and there's a couple other things that I do know about, and yeah, because when you're real, other real people start talking about real stuff, and some of them even train you on things. Like one of my mentors in frequency applications too was Jeff Harvey, former naval intelligence communication officer, who talked to me about some interesting stuff that they did even back in the 70s, and like how you can do it now. and so there's a lot of stuff, and that's not even the most far out one. Like I would suggest it's a recruitment tool, so don't mistake me here. This is a recruitment tool. It's called Speed of Thought. Go check out the movie called Speed of Thought. That is a real NSA program. How do I know this? Like people affiliated with that group gave me a copy to view on its premiere day. They're like, hey, we think you should see this.
Wow.
I'm like, isn't this like a new, like I never heard of this movie. What movie is this? So I went and looked it up, and I saw it was like I happened to get it on the premiere day when it was premiering in one of the theaters. And I had a full high-res digital copy of it handed to me. And it's a good movie, but it does show you like one level of certain types of psychic espionage that happens, and does a decent job of actually portraying like how some of that sort of clairvoyant visuals kind of works. And apparently through some of these associates, I guess even the names that they're using are real names, like for some of the applications that they use in those programs.
this. I want to get back to. I have questions about what you just said. I want to add something to that. So just hold that thought for a minute. But I was just watching that Cambion is going to republish unprivate his vids on SRA. The lawyer letter she sent him was fake. Okay, yeah. Before we get to, I want to get back to Sarah in just a second, but the frequency has tipped my curiosity right now. And can you think, first of all, can you get that? Is it on YouTube? Can you watch that on YouTube, or do you know?
I know it is. I think it's on Netflix and Amazon from time to time. You know how they do that rotation thing. It definitely is there. You might be able to find it on YouTube because, like I said, it is a recruitment tool and they want people to watch it. So, and actually, in a roundabout way, too, Source Code kind of is too. Like that movie is kind of
when you say it's a recruitment tool. Like, what do you mean? The movie itself is a recruitment tool?
Yeah, because they're like. We're talking about very unique people looking for other very unique people. And so can they find you? Yes, they can find you. Yes. That's kind of how they found me, honestly. And how you can say they want, if they think you have potential or if you want to explore that potential, there's different, movies that put out. I mean, on the more blatant level, we have the Marvel movies telling everyone to join the army and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like join the Marines. Okay. Things like this. Air Force. It's same thing happens just on other levels. And so things like Speed of Thought, Source Code are kind of like, hey, there's other programs. And that's kind of like, and that was kind of weird for me, honestly, even though I said I was never in the military. Like they came to my door till I was like 25. Like, and I didn't, I mean, I used to prank my friends from time to time, say I was interested in the Marines. I put their name and have them go. And I was too old for that.
Somebody did that to me when I was 15. And my mom for years was going, she's not going to join the military. Please, right. Yeah. Why?
And they would kind of allude to me sometimes like, oh, if like, and like just that there's other like, oh, like there's the things that you kind of don't want to do. Sometimes there's ways around that. I'm like, I don't even want to know, dude, because if I'm in the military, that means orders are, and I have no say in that. So that's the reason why. So that
okay, I heard like, now this is from David Wilcox, so I don't know, but how legitimate this was in terms of like his interpretation because it came from him. But this really did happen. There's a movie called The Cell. It's got Jennifer Lopez in it, and the DVD version. I watched that at my friend's house, and they have the DVD version of it. And there's a test that you can take. It's an empathy test. And my friend, we were goofing around. My friends go, like we want you to, like we took it, now you take it. And I was like, all right. So I took the test, and I got 100% on it.
Nice.
Like I didn't miss nothing. And that never happened to me before. When you take tests like in magazines and stuff like that, I never get like a perfect score. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Something popped up that didn't pop up for them. And it said something like, we would like to work with you. Would you give us this, give us a call? And I never called it. All right. At least I don't remember that I called it. I'm just joking. But I never called it. But later on, I found out that was a recruitment. That was, they were looking for people who had empathy to like the psychic level. So, hey, I guess I'm kind of, I don't mean to go, I'm so empathetic, I'm psychic, but apparently I did pass that test and I did see that little thing pop up.
Yeah, and this is kind of where subsequently I've heard, and not necessarily from people who've like been on Camelot or other shows. It's like people who don't go public, who are more credible, et cetera, aren't looking for things that would corroborate what I was saying. And like how I was saying that, like what I experienced was some kind of technology that you would almost like pilot. And in a sense, like having that empathy part of it makes it easier for you to kind of like integrate and kind of control, I guess you could say. Yeah, so there is these kind of different technologies apparently that are out there, and I guess some of them are even like commercially available for people who have the weapons license on that higher military level. Like you can buy some of these like enhancing things that exist, I guess. So, and there's probably patents that are out there that are probably would show what those might look like. so if you see it patented by Raytheon, Boeing, yeah, no, it's real. Yeah, no, they're probably doing it. Like how, as you know, I have a patent in that material, and like the person who penned our patent worked with Boeing, and like he would just say like things that were pretty amazing sometimes, like, oh yeah, universities, they all have stuff that doesn't come from here, and it can act kind of like this, and we'll go off about like alien stuff and different whatever that kind of acts like what we do, and blah 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 blah. So it's like they know this, they do it, they all, you know what I mean. So that's why I think it's so funny. Some skeptics who are like, "Oh, this is just so stupid. You people are just ridiculous." It's like you're just uninformed.
Yeah. Okay, the frequency. Talking about the frequency patent. I was just. I watched a video today. I did some commentary. I did a morning chat, just some thoughts about it. But apparently, there was a Taylor Swift concert, the Era concert that happened, that they're saying that the frequency was so overwhelming for people, possibly in maybe the music, or it was just an overwhelming performance, like music, the frequency of music, that people have amnesia to the concert. And there's this, I was watching, of course, David Icke talked about this, where, there's a video included in the video that I shared about David Icke talking about the different frequencies and, how that it can, like a frequency can make a crowd be angry, or, a crowd go ecstatic and things like this. Mm-hmm. Does this kind of stuff have to do with what you're talking about, or your patent, or am I in that ballpark?
Yeah, it actually is. And stuff like this, because like the story behind that was, I actually was practicing science where there's a hypothesis, I'm trying to prove it wrong, right? And the hypothesis was that with certain frequency applications, we can elicit like cleaner combustion in an engine because it's objective, right? You can measure it. And I had seen some people do a version that worked to some degree, but it was unstable. And so I had some theories about that, etc. And so the application of how it was done, like it actually does lend a lot of credence to everything that everyone's been talking about, because it does employ what people might call radionics. It's a type of you can call it orgonite in a sense, but it's a composite material. And it has to do with very specific kind of instruction sets that, like, it's not chance that this nitric oxides go down in the emissions when we specifically said reduce that. And so like this application in a sense can be turned and weaponized, yes. And this is one of the things I found out. It's like, even when you go like trying to be nice in a sense, right, like, and not trying to quote unquote disrupt things, like just because that potential exists, like some elements don't want to gamble with you. And so this is kind of one of those things where, like, I know some people, I really honestly don't have time for them, because, like, yes, like people have tried to kill me for reals. Like my house exploded one time. I barely got my use back of my arm and my right side because of some crazy stuff that happens. And like I said, I wasn't going in with the attitude of like, we're going to revolutionize things. We're going to show those oil companies nothing. No, man. I mean, and we could tell we had some meetings with people who were very serious. Like they did not like what we were doing. And I had to answer them like, yeah, dude, like if you're telling me that, the industry, quote unquote, doesn't like it, I don't know more than the industry. I just got here. So, maybe it does go back on the shelf. I don't know. Because like I said, I'm not here to die for, it's like, I'm not going to be no martyr. And because we found out, honestly, because it's available for sale. And if people really cared about there so much, it was sold better.
I remember Stephen having these little stickers, right? And they had like no, seriously, he told like when I had an old van I was driving, whatever, he would give me this sticker and he just put that on here and it's going to help your exhaust or whatever. And then he also used to have this little tiny dot. You might even be able to notice it maybe on some of his thumbnails, but he would put it on his lapel. And he said the configuration of the dot makes people like you more when they look at it. And he actually gave me this dot like early on, when I was doing Revolution Radio with him to put on I stopped using it because, I don't feel like I need the dot to help people to like me. I mean, I know I have a lot of people that don't like me, but I used to be fairly likable, you know. But what do you say about that? I mean, is that just hogwash or what?
It really comes down to like any product, like the quality of manufacturing is key, because some of them can do some stuff and some of them are complete scams. Yes. And that's just like any industry, that makes it difficult for those of us who are trying to do a sincere effort. And it really depends on where did it come from, how reputable was that, and like for instance, like the hologram that does the gas thing, not reputable. Like I'm pretty sure I know where those came from, and because it sounds like the timeline would have been this other basically disinformation person that I helped stop, and but because yes, there's other people who do similar applications, but like how in the instance with our invention, we stabilized it. Like so, there's been many people like sincere efforts too, not just scammers, but real are real efforts, and so we're able to do that, and it has been lab tested, independently tested through different companies and such who just wanted to verify, so we know it works, and that's not the issue. And this is kind of what I'm saying. It's like I was actually honestly I was a little bit surprised at the community, because I mean we put a lot of hard work to prove what a lot of people are saying, like Organite does something, these little things can do something. Like me and my team prove that, we help prove that for you, but it's like you would think more people would use like some of our data to point to that, even this, and especially some of my colleagues who are on TV, but they don't.
What is Organite exactly?
It's a mixture of resin with metals and minerals and different types of conductive and non-conductive materials. And so, like, can they create a certain electromagnetic field that you can manipulate? Yes. Like, do some of them do some stuff, and some of them, yes, some of them don't. It just kind of depends. And some of them just look pretty. You know what I mean? Either way.
Okay, so it's like those, like some, because I know that some people make those little pyramids and they have like the gold in it and everything. Is that part of it? Is that Organite?
Yeah.
Or okay. Now that's interesting. So is this part of like what is that? Is this part of the conducting of the frequency? Is this part of the material that does that, or is that a separate thing that we were talking about the other patent?
They go together, because on the actual physical level, what's happening when you have these different conductive and non-conductive metals with these different minerals would generally have a different type of piezoelectric interaction, stuff like this. And then the resin together creates a type of like kind of its own electromagnetic field through the natural expansion and contraction of the material itself. And so it's a subtle energy. And sometimes what you end up having, and one of the things that intrigued me about it, because I wasn't really sure about this on that material either when I first heard about it. Someone had one, and I have voltmeters and I have these things like this, and I wanted to check, like, because it should be non-conductive. It shouldn't give me any kind of feedback at all. But I noticed that there was some odd little conductivity spots, and some of them were even kind of a little off of the piece a little bit. And then every once in a while, you would get this huge spike in like voltage. And like, there's no way this thing had 56 volts. Like, where the hell did that come from? And so that did get me intrigued about it. And I started my own research into the material. And then as I found more credible researchers, like you'll see, like here's an example I can show of the material, like our patent is it's opaque, right? So because it's a lot of fine particles. And so a lot of you can probably see some of the bigger particles on the bottom there, but the more granulated things are, the more of an effect you're going to have. So if you see the ones that they're kind of clear with BBs and some tumbled stones, those are more aesthetic. Is there some kind of feel to it? Probably. But like to do what we do, like, no, this is like nano configured in a sense, because we're also it's being constructed. So we're not just pouring it in to the thing and letting it cure. Like, we're bombarding it with frequencies in a specific way, with specific frequencies on specific bandwidths. And that's what does this. And it does correlate with what our intended effect was. So like, for instance, cleaner combustion. And like, can there be ones for health? Yes. And yeah, like I'll give you an example. There's like a talisman that my wife made with with the labradorite skull, but the material that's backing it right there is the material. We have looks like a Tektite there, got selenite on the back. So you can, we do have that application as well.
What is, I mean, and you wear it, what does it do when you wear it?
The health talismans and things like that, what they do is are there to help promote vital organ function, and as well as like a balanced EMF field, and general, like actually even things like antibiotic properties, things like this, just to help, there's, and some of these frequencies, or pretty much all these frequencies, are derived from like many years of research from a lot of different researchers. So like over time, people have tested enough of these frequencies in this manner to say we've seen at least this effect from it. And so stuff like some of the antibacterial ones are really effective. What we did with the engines and stuff like that, that's very off-label. So that was our unique stuff, and we do put some unique frequencies into our health applications too. But there is like a huge library of stuff, and so you have that whole thing. Like even affirmations, for instance, can be imbued and stuff like this. And we're not necessarily the only ones who do this kind of application. There's other ones, like one of our friends, Quantum Stones, has their own way of sort of imbuing stuff, and you can actually tell the difference. Like, because if you have a voltmeter, and like even like with this, even though it's not quite one for human health, it still has some healthy properties to it, like like carcinogens and things like this. Mm-hmm. But if you do a voltmeter before, and then you see what that is, and then you put it in your hand, it usually changes. It should change. It will change the overall conductivity level of all of you. So you can kind of see like some effect on that for yourself. And you can do that versus like a piece of wood, a plastic fork, you know what I mean? And so you can these are ways you can kind of help verify, like how you're saying, does that dot do anything? I'm not saying that's the only test that can verify if it does anything, but if you do see some kind of variance on these things, that's an indicator that there is some kind of electromagnetic field interaction, which is part of this type of technology, which actually does bridge into what you're saying with like more weaponized versions of it, because you're doing this type of electromagnetic
with sound too. I mean, like sound frequencies.
It could be sound. There's definitely sound applications, but like the weaponized stuff is electromagnetic fields. And it's not from like 5G. It's not from that kind of stuff. It's actually it's a more conglomerate wave. And some of it, and this is what I thought was interesting about the new whistleblower, Eric Heckler, talking about that array in the South Pole. Things like this, like theoretically would have that kind of capacity. So we're not talking like, it's not necessarily radio waves. They're very high frequency voltage kind of things. And so that's what you're saying, like these super high frequency voltage generators down there in the South Pole. It makes a lot of sense because you can even attenuate the Earth as well, and so it makes sense. And this is kind of where it goes into like the Tesla stuff as well.
Oh, it's very interesting. All right, so I want to get back to I thank you for sharing that, and I'm enjoying this conversation. Let's see what some of the people are saying here. Of course, we have the Cambion. The Cell was trippy. Yes, it's a good movie. I mean,
yeah, it's interesting.
Some unfavorable scenes, but we had that movie at my theater. I watched a lot. Yeah, visually, it's really stunning. That movie, The Cell. I mean, just like it's very frequencies. I live under a flight path of the EA 18G. It's crazy what it does. I firmly believe in like affirmations, or that your mind, what we think in our mind is what we create. And if we're filled with if someone's bringing hate towards you or whatever, like the whole thing about the water and how it crystallizes, and just thinking about your body being water, and all of that stuff. I think that is really, it's really real. I mean, like our reality is at first created in what we come up with in our mind first, always. And again, just think about all the things that we've figured out and created on the planet so far. So Sarah Rachel Adams was brought up here in the chat with Yeah, okay. And it says Cambion is going to like republish the lawyer, videos were fake and all that kind of stuff. Like she sent out defamation lawyers because Stephen Cambion was really writing her hard on being a grifter. And I've seen pictures of her back then, and I guess Miles Johnston was there and this and that, blah, 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 blah. I don't think, was Max and Sarah together at that time at the beginning of that event, or did they meet there?
Yeah, they were. I believe they were already kind of together at that point. And then Sarah was not like one of the speakers there. It was more like she was associated with Max, and that's why she was there. And like I said, honestly, like that group specifically, okay, like Max, Sarah, even James Rink, like some of these characters, they are not strong intuitives. They are like horribly, horribly bad at it. Like, I'm sorry to tell, if you hear this, James, I'm sorry, but you are horribly, horribly bad at it. Okay. And honestly,
it seems like you would have to be to listen to all those stories that people say, because you mentioned like there's this agreed, like story, agreed something, where it's not real. They've all just said, yeah, we knew each other, we did this, we did that, I'm sorry, interrupted. So I totally don't think that Sarah's much of a psychic. And one of the first clues to that was the fact that there was somebody that was associated to Kevin Moore that admitted to me that she was doing her psychic readings for her. And I said, what do you mean you're doing her psychic readings? Because Sarah's, at this point, Sarah's charging like big money to do these readings, and the person was complaining that Sarah wasn't kicking her back enough money, and
wow, that sucks, and that makes it worse for a lot of us. I mean, that's honestly like, I don't do like, I do readings for people. No, like I work with more businesses, so it's kind of like they see what I can do, and they know that there's some kind of predictive element to it. Hell, even my stream that I do, like, I'm known for kind of calling stuff, like in cryptocurrency, you know what I mean? All sorts of stuff. So I demonstrate these things, and that's how I do. I don't go do the reading things. Will I do that for some people? Yes, but also those sometimes are for free, actually. And this is where my wife and I did create a nonprofit entity, because we're not going to say, because some people legitimately have trauma, or they're really traumatized by an experience. And we're not going to be like, we can't help you because you can't give me $100 at least or something. You know what I mean? We're not like that kind of person. So this is where we did create at least an entity to help kind of keep track of that for ourselves, and whatever we can do in terms of how we can leverage that to our own, whatever. Because it's like that is part of it. But like how at the time, going back to Sarah Adams, it's like, she wasn't even the person who was communicating all these types of experiences. Like, I mean, that's what a lot of people were doing. And honestly, I wasn't like, because you could tell they're trying to glean what they could off of everyone too. Like, you know what I mean? And this is what I'm saying. Like, like, I'm not here to talk crap on Max, but he's definitely wasn't like this clean cut knight of the truth. He was not a great guy. He was also a liar. Okay. Like, at least about some of these experiences, like, he knows it, and you know what I mean, and he knew it then too, and he knows he wasn't no freaking wizard. Like, if they do, then they're just narcissists, which I don't doubt that part either. And like, that's one of those things that it's like don't, because like we're seeing with Sarah, that makes it harder for me too. So I'm going to take that a little personal when you're doing this, because I don't want people looking at me like I'm some charlatan, because they are, and a lot of them are charlatans, totally.
There's Jeff writes, don't leave out the fact that someone was strung out on morphine at the time she did readings for SRA. Okay, yeah, I know who he's talking about.
Dude, that's
okay, yeah, Astro Lunatic, yeah, I did know somebody that admitted to me that they were doing their readings to her, and they were working with her specifically, and that was actually like the catalyst of my break from Sarah at that point. That was like my turning card. And then also, she was saying some really awful things about Max's mom, Vanessa. And I don't want to repeat it, but that was a big turnoff for me too, with Sarah. I had actually met Sarah one time with the woman that James Casbolt had married and
yeah, Haley.
This Haley, yeah. In Malibu, and when Sarah was dating the plastic surgeon guy, like a few years back.
So that's the reason. Okay, that makes sense. I don't follow. I didn't.
The era. Okay. There's an era where there was a thing that happened.
Oh,
Baker, you didn't get the notification. Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, shame on YouTube not getting the notification. So, well, thanks for being here, though. It's good to be. She's a serpent. So Sarah was in Henderson, Nevada, with Max. Were they living in the United States at that time, or had Max come from the UK over to do that? I think
he came over because I don't think he was there for long, if I remember correctly. I knew he was going to be around for a little bit. We had spoke a little bit there because like Max and I like we knew each other, like we weren't friends, but I mean I okay, this is kind of what's weird to me too, and I don't want to start Max freaking rumors or try to glorify any Max stuff, but one of the things that was kind of weird was that like when I first met him in 2011, like it was like a different person when I met him over in Nevada. Like he literally was like not the same person, like. And I at one point I even asked James Rink about this. I'm like, dude, is that the same person? And he goes, honestly, I don't know either.
Okay, wait, so okay, take me. Okay, this is true for me. Okay, so you met him like before this, and he seemed like a different person. Where'd you meet him at the first time?
At Wake and Aware 2011. And
okay,
actually he came with James Rink. And I knew James at that point too, and I'm like, oh hey, and then he's like, yeah, this is my friend Max Spears. And I'm like, oh hey, how's it going? Like, hey, and then like flash forward, a little bit later, and it's like the dude that I met, like, because how Max, like, he had a very kind of square feature to him, right? Like his face, right? This other dude was a little bit more narrow and long. And I'm an artist, so I know I can do life drawing. Like, so I know I kind of could tell that's a different nose, that's a different ear. You know what I mean? Let alone everything else. And I always thought that was kind of weird. And I just can't put that past me. Like, it's just like I can't disregard my own feelings on this one. Because that Max from 2011 was different, and the 2013 Max was kind of scummy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it makes sense, like what I heard subsequently about like certain like addiction issues and all this other stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, he does act like a fiend. Okay. And some of these other things, like I said, they're like him and Casbolt knew that they were embellishing. Like you would hear them talking about it. And some of them would know that they would have heard this too. And they can claim mind control or whatever, which it could be true. You know what I mean? I don't know, because these are some of the people you would target, because who ended up on TV. Right. And this is what blows my mind, is like how people are still going like Casbolt's such a great guy, and like how he was literally thrown in jail for revenge porn for crapping on his ex-wife, and they're still saying like, who's a
wait, go back. Okay, first I got the who got busted for revenge porn? Oh,
that was Casbolt.
Right.
Yeah,
crapping on his what?
And yeah, because he sent these pictures of Shat
of her
to everyone. And then he literally says on trial how he was tasked to like embarrass the family, and like, and everyone's still like, he's a great guy, like, you gotta listen to Casbolt, he's here to help. Like, no, he's not. What's wrong with you?
Well, okay, Crystal Rivers here. Welcome. Hey, Jerry and Terry, I can attest that Stephen was not wearing any dot that rendered him more like. Sorry. That particular group of so-called super soldiers are nothing more than narcissistic grifters. Okay, so the whole Max thing. So it was a different Max in Henderson, Nevada. And that's the Max that got interviewed by Carrie Cassidy with James Casbolt, right? And then, we'll see. I kept hearing that Miles Johnston would say, you know what, Max, you need new stuff. And then people would be complaining that he was taking away their material. Like I think,
That's happened, yes.
I think, what was her name? Cara St. Louis was going. He's taking my fairies stuff. You know what I mean? Like I had the whole thing on fairies. Max can't be talking about fairies. So there was this kind of like, don't be doing my shtick. And then, maybe that's why, possibly because they had this pressure. Hey, you need to come up with something new, something more to keep everybody hooked in what you're talking about. Is that somewhere in the ballpark?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And and that's kind of where I was mentioning, even with Camelot, it's like Carrie isn't like, even though like she's fairly sensational, but she's not like rabid about it, because like how there is a certain level of like, hey, I know this is bullshit, but let's document this. You know what I'm saying? And so that is some of those interviews on Camelot are that, like, and Carrie will tell you, yeah, I don't agree with these people, but this is what they want to put on record. And so that happens. And so this is kind of where some of these elements are even more so. You know what I mean? That they don't care. They just want people to be glued to whatever. And this ultimately became what Gaia is. You know what I'm saying? And we can see it. Like a lot of us can see it. They oh my God, so infiltrated and just changed everything because they came in with a bunch of money. They changed all the conferences. They forced whoever was going to be on stage with that money, because it's like most conference people like are like, sure, you're my biggest sponsor, I'll put whoever you want. Oh, you mean you happen to have this TV station where they're going to be talking about this other stuff, and then we get, what's his name, Good, and all these other people, from this, and so and people are still watching Gaia like it's like on their side, and it's like, and some will get on me, get on you, whatever, for pointing this out. And this is what I'm saying, I'm not going to those conferences. I'm not there anymore. Like, because I was there to kind of stop some disinformation, honestly. And like, yeah, like I have no interest in kind of doing it again.
So you felt like when you went there, you thought, okay, a lot of this is just not real. And you watched it happen, basically. I mean, this is the feeling I'm getting from you. Is that right? I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm seeing, but here they're putting these people on display. They're not. See, here's my problem a little bit with what Carrie and Miles has done in terms of like their super soldier or even their UFO disclosure stuff, is that they haven't said, hey, this is for entertainment purposes only. All right. Like, I can't listen to this person with discernment. I'm not saying that this is an actual fact for everybody to like believe as this is the way it is. And I think that's the problem that's happened, is that, they're like, for example, Oki's Weird Stories about super soldiers. I don't know if you've watched that on YouTube. This guy did a documentary. It's so, you got to look for it. I did commentary on it like about a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. Maybe it's been a couple of years now. But on the documentary, but he basically watches James Rink and then charts out, exactly what to say to get, first of all, this special test from him to be verified that he really is a super soldier. And then after that, James Rink not only like interviews him, but invites him to the convention.
Oh, yes,
right?
yes, I did see this.
Okay.
Yes, that's
so
right. Yeah, that was excellent. Yeah.
There's definitely an agreed upon belief of what super soldiers is, down to people saying that Kevin Spacey was, one of their, commanders or whatever. Somehow like Kevin Spacey gets interwoven into the super soldier program. I'm going like this, gets interwoven into the, and I find that interesting because Kevin Spacey played one of the psychic soldiers in The Men of Stare Goats. So maybe that's where they get it from. I have no idea. Well, but
okay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that, like, how, and this is something like, I'm not sure what's still out there on the internet, but like, and this is kind of where some of you saw me typing in a Shakespeare. Like, it's the same Shakespeare. You might be able to find some stuff where I was talking about like how some of the mind control uses celebrities to basically discredit you, and also to kind of throw you off the scent. And so that's not necessarily that outlandish. And this is what, like, and with Rink, I told him, like, dude, you're getting hacked. Like, like everything you're telling me is part of this disinformation thing that I've been tracking before you say you started experiencing stuff. So, and I warned him, and he still went about it. And yeah, there's something, and it's not like one group. It's like there's all, and a lot of them honestly are commercial interests trying to angle their patents into the future. And so you have these fringe groups that are maybe associated with some alphabet groups, but they aren't necessarily like the FBI, the NSA, but they're these private groups, and they're the ones that are annoying. Like when the government wants you, they will just do what they do, and you know it's them. They don't hide it. They're just like, boom, we're here. And I've had that happen more like in person on my computer, whatever. There's a distinct difference between like a commercial interest tracking you versus like the man wants you.
Okay, so how much money do you think, like let's say the Henderson, Nevada event, how many days was that people were there? Was it a 3-day conference?
It was 3 days. Yeah, it was kind of like a late day on Friday, and then everything really was Saturday and Sunday.
So you have people that go there, they get hotel rooms, they buy tickets, they listen to everybody speak. Was it a sold out crowd? Was it busy? What was the attendance like?
I would say the attendance was I mean, maybe close to 100.
Overall like for the 3 days, or 100?
Yeah, because most of them stuck around like for all 3 days, and there was probably room in that auditorium for about 300, so it was maybe like a third capacity. Not all at once most of the time either. It was like here and there, coming and going, and something around there. And I don't remember how much the actual tickets were to get in the door though.
And the speakers, were they paid, or were they just there to speak, or like did they have something they sold afterwards, a book? I mean, how did they finance their trip, and how was it profitable for them?
Yeah, that's like, there wasn't as far as I know, like I don't think that one wasn't a paid gig. I think what they offered was the room and such when you're there, and then if you had stuff to sell, you could put up your booth and such, and reap whatever benefits you could from that. If I'm pretty sure that's what it was. If there was a speaking thing, it wasn't that much. Like, and I don't think that's what drew everyone. Because I mean, just covering the room and stuff like that's pretty cool. And like I said, a lot like I wasn't going there to try and make money off of that speaking engagement. I mean, in terms of like from the speaking, So, like I said, if you're looking to make money from your speaking, like you probably have not that great of a business model. But yeah.
Right, so excuse me. Okay, allergies and stuff. All right, so here's the big question that I want to ask you about that whole Henderson, Nevada. First question, the most important one, and then don't let me forget about asking about Michael Hemmingson. Okay. But so the whole abduction thing that happened, all right, that apparently they were, taken out of their rooms, MK Ultra taken into a van, broken doors, this and that, Miles Johnston uploading video footage about it. What is that all about? What is your take on that?
I think they're full of crap, completely, because it derives mostly from Sarah, and she's full of crap. And then who else is going to verify it now? Max? Oh yeah,
mostly from Sarah. Did originally?
Because there was some grumblings over there, like in terms of like they're like, oh, I wonder who's watching, or if they're going to get us this and that, and it was just like, oh my god, like just hearing that, like, is disgusting to me. Like, because that tells me they've never experienced like literal abduct, like little kidnapping. It's not something like, oh, I wonder if I'm gonna get kidnapped. Like, no, dude. Like, I seriously, at that point, I really did want to like front kick all of them, because all I went through was pain and trauma, and you're sitting there excited about stuff. Like, yeah, get out of here, man. And like,
okay, so they were already talking before that happened. Before the next morning, they were saying that they might all be abducted already, and then it happened.
Yeah, and then and on the broken door thing. Okay, now I don't mind elaborating on this, and this is where you might have some people listening to this part, because there really are these Templar groups. There's these Rosicrucian groups that take a lot of stuff very seriously. It doesn't matter if you or I believe them. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Okay, they do. Okay, and one of these Templar groups, who's exceedingly racist, didn't like me, and they tried to use Casbolt in a roundabout way to kind of intimidate me. And so then when I was there with Casbolt, I'm like, hey, buddy, anything your buddies want to tell me right now while I'm in your face? No? Okay. And he got it at one point. I'm like, yeah, you know what we're doing. And he didn't do anything. And so then after that, he was triggered. He was triggered and went into some rage. And it was
Casbolt was triggered about that?
Yes. And then because he came and told me the next day. He said that he flew into this rage. He couldn't control it. And it was funny when he was illustrating it to me. He's like, I just kept having to punch the door like this over and over, like right to my face. I just had to keep doing this over and over. I couldn't control it. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense to me. And it told me a lot about who he was. Yeah, because some of what he does probably isn't necessarily him. Because there is. So
do you think that there, on some level, James Casbolt was mind controlled?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes.
And so, okay. So he was like, told to punch you in the face, but he did it to the door instead. All right. Templars, interesting. So the Templars don't like Mexicans? Is that it?
No, this particular group didn't.
Sorry, for me to be so flat with that,
But they don't like brownies, yes, because they did put it in the message that you have to be white and a lot of money to be like one of us cool people. And they were trying to recruit one of my associates at the time, who was also part of one of these disinformation things, who I was also trying to find out the roots of at the time. So they knew what I was doing, because I'm sure they knew who I was kind of associated with, even though I don't entirely know who I'm associated with. I just know that these things don't go away. You know what I mean?
It's really weird. I feel weird to say this right now, but it's just, I guess it's coming out. I found out about 3 years ago. Maybe not quite 3 years, maybe even less than that. My mother just pops out of nowhere, and I'm talking to her on the phone. She goes, "Oh, Terry, speaking of the Illuminati." I'm like, "What?" Because I never had this kind of conversation with her, right? Mm-hmm. And she goes, "We're the lineage of the Knights Templars," and I'm like, "What?" Like I'm like, this is true. I'm telling you the truth. I had no idea. Like, and then I'm thinking I'm a half breed. So I'm thinking, well, they must, now that you're saying that they're racist, they must hate me too. They like, my mother had that half breed daughter.
Some of them, yes. Like, yeah, it's not because like there's not all of
them.
Some of
them, not all of them. Right now I'm going to be even more hated. Right now, it's like, oh, dude, she's part of the Knights Templars. I had no idea, and they kept it from me for some reason. I also found out. Well, I knew that my I have Masons in my family too. So, yeah. Oh, and then I also find out that my Aunt Lillian was Dwight D. Eisenhower's cousin. Yeah. They didn't tell me though. So I don't know. Maybe I'm MK Ultra.
Wow. Well, I mean, in that sense, like, because we discussed a little bit about your past. It's like these things don't happen for a reason, and it's like, and you and I are here.
And I've been attracted to all of this, right? And then I, I'm going, oh, the Masons and this and that and blah blah blah, and the Templars, and then my mom's like, oh, Terry, speaking of the Illuminati. Speaking, by the way,
I meant to give you this card.
And my mother said to me, she goes, so when you talk about us, this is what my mother said, she goes, just be kind, okay? Be kind. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I feel it on that. Because I often say, it's like ruling the world is a tough job. I don't want that. And considering that we're not living in Mad Max and no one's nuked each other yet, I'm not doing too bad a job overall.
Yeah.
And then when you get into the far out stuff of like some of these different weapons that apparently that we have, and those haven't been used on us yet so far. All right, we're doing pretty good. So
I mean, I think that people might even think I'm making that up. Like, oh, she's just saying that now because there's Laura Eisenhower and stuff like that. But I am telling the truth. I mean, that is something that I almost feel. I don't know. I almost feel like they go, we better tell her, because I've been talking. I don't know. I just feel like it was something like
it could very well be. Yes, it's not.
We better tell her.
because yeah, like how I said, whether you believe it, like I'm not affiliated with the Masons, Templars, Rosicrucians, but have I been approached by them? Yes. And yeah, no, they do. They really take what they're talking about seriously. And so if they've been watching you, if they've been, yeah, you might get an anonymous email, or like how, because you have the affiliation, your mom may have gotten a message just out of nowhere that said, oh, you better tell her about that. And that's all it'll say. Because that's kind of what it is. And not all of it's like insidious or nefarious purposes.
Right.
But like, yeah, there, and like any kind of group, there's infiltration, but like these other people, like they're removed from our society, most of them, with some exceptions. These cultists that kind of are really not what most of us would agree with, shall we say. And this is kind of where I think that it is thrown around a little too easily, of like who's one of them, quote unquote, in like Hollywood and all this other stuff like that. So it just isn't that easy. It's like, and most of the villains, like the real villains, you don't know their names. Like you'll never hear their names. You'll never see where they live. They are not your politicians. They are not those people. You don't know who they are, and they don't know you. So I think it's just a misnomer to be like the Clintons did everything, or Trump is part of Antichrist. I mean, it's just like they all are, because they're part of those controllers. And like we all say this. We've been saying this for so long now. And like how I even mentioned with whatever quote unquote super soldier testing I seen people who looked like commercial mercenaries telling the military to get out of their way a lot of times. You know what I mean? It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't like under, like, obviously I was at a base, so like the Air Force base at one point. So there's Air Force things there, but it was like a private group. And yeah, it's so that's what I'm saying. These other people who look to try to glorify trauma, that's a huge red flag. Huge.
Oh, that's interesting. I know how you feel, Terry. I just found out my late aunt's uncle was the captain of the Titanic, Edward Smith.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when you find out in later on in your family lineage what is what is. I kind of wondered, like, in a way, because I was attracted to this topic. Obviously, one of the things that, first of all, I got, like, for me, what led me to this area was that I was, got into UFOs, and I found Project Camelot and all this. And then I really got into the super soldier stuff, and I kind of secretly was watching it. Like, I didn't, in my real life, I didn't want to tell anybody, because if you described these things to somebody, they'd be like, what? What are you, this is ridiculous. Why are you watching that? And, a lot of it is probably ridiculous, and because a lot of it is fabricated, but then on another side of it, there's some truth to psychics being used and this and that, and remote viewing and the psychic aspect of everything. And so, so it's trying to decipher what, the real part of all this is, and not just the white actors that have been on display in front of us. And it's really sad that they are all white, really. It's like it's funny that you mentioned that, because I had that same thought. I think of myself earlier today in the kitchen, I was cooking and making stuff, and I was thinking about that. I go, why are they all white? They're all white, right? And so I just kind of, that's an interesting element in the casting,
because it's obviously part of the culture, honestly. Because, like, for instance, I'm like almost 50% Native American. The other large portion of my genetics is Basque. I am a shaman in a Native American fashion, but no one wanted to hear from the Native American shaman who has the culture and stuff like that. They want to hear from the British shaman talking about Native American culture in that workshop, and pay $3,000 for that workshop, and let alone someone who can actually do something and show you how to get better at your intuitive techniques. Because no, they've been taught to look for the old white wizard as the savior through the media, through general conditioning over time now. And this is literally ingrained in everyone's subconscious. And it becomes real obvious to a lot of us.
If you listen to Duncan O'Finion's story, he says that the reason why he was so desired was because that he was Irish, but he also had this Native American blood
Yeah,
as
they all
well.
like to claim
But
that.
he was like a mixture of it, and that was giving him, his edge. Now I know that they have the Viking thing going on, where, the Vikings had, they used outer, they were shamanic and stuff like that in what they were doing, which are more Nordic, right? But then you have the Native American bloodline as well. It's really fascinating to. I'm interested in psychic things and healing energies and stuff like that. Just out of basic curiosity, but I think there's a grifter aspect of everything. All right, so let's talk about who put that.
Real quick with
Yeah.
Finian and Corso and even McCollum in that sense too. Like there's it's kind of weird because it's a good example of different generations of some of these characters. Now the difference between say Corso, Duncan, and McCollum is they actually have some track record of being military in a sense. Now Duncan was a mercenary, but if you really kind of know how to get to the bottom of that, yes, he really was in some of these things. Same thing, Corso, one of the most decorated Navy Marine snipers, right? I've seen McCollum's Coast Guard stuff. Some of the stuff you can tell they absolutely did. You know what I mean? And some of the stuff like that you'd hear, it's like, why aren't you sharing that? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but at the same time, no, they absolutely were coordinating a false story behind the scenes, and that was like when, like I kind of like I know you guys are doing this, like that's what and that's kind of where some might remember I had a podcast for a year which I kind of adopted from Aaron McCollum called Universal Truth Evolution, and so that's kind of where that like kind of was there was a line drawn there where there was like an agreement. Okay, we kind of all see what's going on here. Let's not make a big splash about things if we don't have to. And oh.
Aaron McCollum had something called Universal Truth
Evolution. Yeah.
Evolution did he write a book? Was that a book that he wrote? No. Somebody gave me a link of a book and they said it was like Aaron P. McCollum or something. I don't know if it was the right guy, the same guy as
might be a different one, yeah.
Yeah. So do you think Aaron McCollum is legitimate?
Like he legitimately did see some stuff, yes. Like absolutely, yeah. Like but like some of the stuff that he was talking about with that Seagate project, like not him. But is there a project that's kind of like that? Maybe. But
why do you
that
think,
part wasn't.
Why did you think that he decided to make up something when he actually had something legitimate? Is that part of protecting the real thing by having these people come forward and like say more fantasies than they are the real truth, or are they doing it because the real truth isn't as interesting as the fantasy is?
Little bit of both there, and then also the fact is that there's some kind of agenda behind it for they're trying to steer things in one way or another, and now this is me purely speculating. But it stands to reason what I've heard from other associates who kind of had some experience with Aaron too. It seemed like he was actually doing a type of revenge. Like he said, he said he was disgruntled about something that happened, and then so he decided to go out and share his experiences about what he experienced. I would say is probably more legit a quote unquote super soldier experiment, because he was the Coast Guard at least. There were some random assignments. There was a type of conditioning that he went through as a child, like coming from a military background. And these things you could verify. Like you could verify, some of these things, including that his dad was a very high-ranking individual, and things like this. So what he was saying a lot of times, there was some truth elements to it, but for a fact, it wasn't all his story. Because I know there's other people who came later confessed as well, said, hey, before he went to Camelot, etc., he approached me about sharing my story as him, though. You know what I mean? And some of these people weren't like public, like they weren't talking about this to anyone. So somehow whoever he was working with knew how to get in touch with these people who were experiencers. So there is some like legit. So they're not complete full of shit on some of these people, and like that generation in particular. Subsequently, like the Max and yeah, full crap. Like Yeah. Now Max did go through some interesting. He seems like he did a stint as a mercenary, from what I can tell, and from what I was able to trace. And of course he had this really kind of weird childhood, as it sounds like. And so there is like a question. It calls to question what could have happened there. Casbolt too. Casbolt has that like some legitimacy in terms of like, did he come from this sort of like almost kind of like a dark world kind of thing? Yeah, that does seem very true. But it's like the other stuff though, like that's where you have to be like really suspect.
Are you Rh negative?
No.
Okay. I was wondering because like the Basque people, I think that they have Rh negative going on in their blood. You know what? I found out that this is another interesting thing I found out too recently. My mom had, like I've been learning about, like I tutor biology, anthropology. And so, I was talking about blood types and this and that. And with that, we don't go into the negative stuff. And my mom did do some tests and like we're A positive, but some of the antigens are actually negative on there. So you can actually have positive blood, but still have some negative antigens still within that whole format. And so I found that out too recently. I didn't realize that there's a,
one of the things that like, so I've over the years have done workshops and things like this, and like I tell everyone, like everyone can demonstrate some proficiency in intuition. Like, so everyone in a sense is already psychic. You can demonstrate this, you can hone it as a skill, and it's demonstrable and objective. This can happen. And there's a difference between like some people are, say, Olympic sprinters, and some people can just make it away from danger if they have to. You know what I mean? And that's how it goes with psychic nature. Like, because the bloodline thing, I think, is also kind of like, honestly, this is part of those racist groups of these different.
Right. Well, I mean, it seems like a lot of the Super Soldier program is based on, the Nazi, kind of Uberman, the Superman. There's that whole, like you're beyond human, that kind of, the perfect man philosophy behind it. Maybe that's why it's so Anglo as well, that they're kind of, there's like and it might be a different era, because I think now, we're really making a push to having diversity in our movies and everything. I mean, it's like we're hopefully we're kind of like we're evolving as a society where it's not, I think we're coming a little bit progressive. So maybe had the Super Soldiers program started today and not back in 2012, we might see a Black Super Soldier. Could you imagine? That would be fantastic. Where are the Black people? Right?
It might happen now.
One Black Super Soldier out there. That's disgraceful.
There has been actually. I've absolutely heard, like, there was one Black gentleman had one of the most, like, it sounded very similar to mine without, and once again, not seeking any attention, just did one talk and was like, yeah, that's kind of what happened, and just disappeared. Right. So that's why I was going to say, like, see,
he auditioned, but he didn't get the part, basically, according to like Miles Johnson and Karen Cassidy.
Yeah, the media part wants the white people. Now, the actual people that, like, I've even met subsequently who do the work, no, they look like everyone else. Like, I mean, it doesn't, different colors, different shapes, different sizes. But it's only when you're going to be on Gaia TV or some of these things like that do they want that old wise white wizard or the brilliant young white man or the immaculately beautiful white woman.
The goddess.
And that's what is it their fault? No, it's because it still works on people. It still works on people. So don't blame them. Blame everyone else. Blame the millions that don't care right now. Blame them, not the man. because if enough people had their own discernment, it would not be an issue.
Oh, by the way, happy summer solstice to everybody. Oh, yes, so it is the solstice. So I'm going to get to some of the comments in the chat here in a second, but I have a question about who put that Super Soldier Summit together. So you were involved in putting it together somewhat with Carrie. Was Douglas Dietrich ever involved at all, or was Lorien Fenton? And then what about, there's rumors of Michael Aquino. Do you know anything about Michael Aquino being involved in that?
Yeah, no way.
Okay.
Like, yeah, there's, yeah, that. Oh, yeah, that's right. That was one of the other allegations that Steve was saying. Like, that was funded by Aquino. The Kerry's funded by. Dude, no one talked to Aquino. Okay, like no one. he's just lying. Like, Gloria definitely didn't go, "Hey, how's it going today?" So, and the people who I know who have interviewed him, like it seemed like it's very cut and dry. Like there was, nothing, that like he hasn't said before. You know what I mean? So this whole idea that the Aquino funded that, yeah, no, didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Aquino's name was just kind of thrown all around that whole, everything to do with super soldiers. And then Michael Hemmingson, he was there at that event. Did you interact with him, and what is he like?
Not really. No, I didn't.
No.
No, there's some people like, I just, you could tell they don't really have much to talk about. And those of us who kind of saw that group that was honestly clamoring for attention and limelight, we were on the other side of the room. I mean, because we just didn't want to be there.
Well, I mean, there's all these rumors. I mean, not rumors, but you do research on. Michael Hemmingson had a blog called Confessions of a Former White Hat.
Yeah.
That was oftentimes, and he had a show on Revolution Radio. I just heard that he was there, and then he died.
He died.
Yeah. Or so they say he does. Some people say they still believe he's alive, but he basically died and disappeared. But I was just curious about that. So I guess that's, I'm trying to think of anything else that I might want to ask. Let me see. What do we got going on in the chat here?
But I do remember the former White Hat blog. That was hilarious. There was one of them that involved Tommy and Kerry, and it was so funny. I remember showing Tommy it, and he literally fell over laughing. He was like, "Oh my god!" It was like Kerry had like Tommy clones, and then one of them was like her S&M pet or something like that. It was like super out there, and like Tommy just fell over laughing as soon as he heard that. It was great.
Well, now Rui says that he did not make the Jedi team. I'm okay with that. You know what? I'm okay with that too. Like, I mean, the fact, like Stephen, it's funny. I went to Stephen's new channel, and there's some stuff that's been uploaded to that channel that goes back. I can remember creating the actual thumbnail for the videos, and he went from Jedi doing like the Reiki master kind of, stuff to evolving into this whole other, going in the astral plane and fighting the bad guys under the Getty and all this kind of stuff and it's not even an original name. Like, he's stealing it from Star Wars. And then somebody made they were in the chat on when I was doing the stream about Stephen. And somebody said something like, like when he had the argument with Kerry Cassidy, he goes, "There's no reptiles underneath the Getty, Kerry." And then somebody goes, "Yeah, but his new cover for his book, like he redid a cover, it has a guy with a reptile face on it." So even though Stephen's denying it, he's still perpetuating it in the cover of his own book.
Yeah,
it's so hypocritical.
Yeah, and like how he went on to describe the portals where the Dracos come through underneath the Getty after that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's indicative because, like, and that's kind of where, like, you can see, like, he wasn't gonna mesh in like the group that we're in, because it's like, no, you can't just make things up and expect us to believe it. That's not the crowd that you're in.
Jeff used to comment on that blog when I was first researching Stephen, because I was going to interview him. I put his name in, and he came up in that blog. That's how I found Confessions of a Former White Hat. And I think I spent like quite a long time looking at it. That's when I first read about Duncan O'Finian, and that, Stephen, he had 3 clones, and then one was, the real Stephen D. Kelley was on ice underneath the Getty Museum. I mean, this is like the things that Michael Hemmingson wrote, but he was a writer. So, and there was a tip-off from Nighthawk himself that said that Kerry Cassidy was actually paying for the former White Hat blog. So it was kind of like that blog might have been an offshoot of what Carrie was doing in the first place. Because I mean,
if that was the case, then it was like one of the best secrets I ever seen Carrie keep. Because
I have a screenshot of Mike Greenlee telling me that.
Yeah, because during that time, like Tommy was a fan, right? Like, and so if he and he also was like key to making Project Camelot apparatus kind of stay moving forward. And if he would have seen that was the case, like I'm sure I would have heard of it. and yeah, like that there was conversations that Tommy and I did have over like who, when it first started, who might that be, et cetera, tracking it. And but yeah, I highly find that suspect. And I know Nighthawk, like how like sometimes he was very lucid and sometimes he would just kind of make some stuff up. So I only had so many direct interactions by it here, like, oh, he said this, and it's like that's clearly not true. Like, how would he know this? These are the next question.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this came up out of it had to do with these like back channel, these domains that were running through the Michael Hemmingson White Hat blog and Revolution Radio, that somebody had shown me graphics or screenshots of back channels or something that they had. And so it was like within that exposure that, Nighthawk, pointed a finger at Carrie Cassidy and said, oh, she's the one it's her. She's paying for this and that. Like, I think it was almost like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like, oh, it's their fault, not mine. It's Carrie Cassidy. She's the evil person in this. I think it's more like that kind of a statement. So they have to ramp up the bullshit, to stay relevant. So do you think that the whole being abducted in the middle of the night and the blast out door really had to do with the fact that James Casbolt wasn't trying to punch you in the face that night and there was no abduction? That's what is that your final statement on that?
On that part with Casbolt, yes, because he pretty much admitted as much to me, like, because like how there was, because like you could say like the way I can relate, in that sense, kind of disarmed some of the programming to where I can kind of talk directly to him a little bit more. And like how we're saying, ultimately, like I don't necessarily have a problem with someone being like, if someone's racist, like I'm not telling you not to be. You can believe whatever you want. But there does get at one point it does get into like stuff that most of us would disagree with it occurring. And some of these groups that obviously Casbolt was dealing with were part of that. Hence the reason things happened with Haley. And then you see subsequently, like he's saying, to embarrass the family, and we see that her brother ends up being in politics, and happens to be like the one of the Republicans who spoke up against Trump while he was still in office. And so there is elements that some of these different groups kind of do know or can approximate what you might do in the future too. And so this is kind of why some people are sort of tasked without even knowing what they're doing.
All right, I have somebody who's questioning if I wonder if Carrie actually believes this shit now. John, you're here a little bit later on tonight. So, but basically, I think what you said earlier is that Carrie Cassidy never really believed a lot. Still didn't believe all of it herself. She was just documenting it, that this is what these people are saying. So she wasn't. So, and then Jeff says at John Kerry when making a play for Mark Richards. Now that he is divorced. Again, if you're late to the party, I'm gonna wrap it up here in a little bit because I try not to go too long, so that someone doesn't look at this video and go, "Oh my God, 3 hours! I can't handle all of that." And you've been here for 2 already, No, that's okay, John. It's okay. I'm just happy to see you here. So yeah, don't worry about being late. I was just like reiterating that, like early in the show that you had mentioned that. Thank you for coming out and being on the show, and then talking about your past history with Stephen D. Kelley and your history with Carrie Cassidy and what you think about the Super Soldier program and everything, and your take on stuff.
That event though, it's reached mythic proportions of all these people who had all these experiences. It's all these people who have like the worst kind of credibility, and like there's other guests there that you hear absolutely nothing about. You know what I mean? And they have a lot more credibility. I mean, one of the other who's still active is Solaris Blue Raven. Is still
Oh,
out
I
there.
remember her.
Yeah, and but then there's others that just don't remember, like how many people hear my name, and like how like I was there the whole time when the former White Hat blog was there. I was never mentioned. Like these things, I'm not like I wanted to be, but there does seem to be a reason. Like, and it's not just racism. Some of it is because it's hard to sensationalize what I'm talking about, because it's like it's real. Like, and I noticed that most people don't ask me, okay, so what is this thing that's so hard? What did you really experience? I mean, no, that's not what they're asking. It's like I would tell you, because because like that part of me that's doing that sort of public service part would say, yeah, this is what happened. But that's what I mean. It's like, to me, it seems like more people are interested in superficial stuff. And I'm not saying call to action. I'm not saying, oh, we need to stop this. Like how Kelley's like, save the kids. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, watch out for yourself and the people you know. And if someone does say, hey, you know what, I feel like I was kidnapped and I don't know how, like, don't just laugh at them. Find out a little bit more. Because yes, it does kind of happen. And like I said, these people glorifying trauma, like as in like, I want to be abducted. I've been abducted. Then you're lying to me. Like, you're lying. Like, I can see. Just like how people who've been through like real war can tell, like if you've actually been in war, because there's certain traumas, like you're just changed, and you can see it in people. And all these people don't have that scar, and you can tell for those who have.
Well, it was a very interesting conversation, and tonight I found it very interesting, and so I want to thank you for being here today and this evening, and so. I'm feeling like you gave your final thought there. Is there any other thing that you want us to know? Like, where can people contact you? Do you not want people to contact you? It's like, I'm here now. I've said it. Don't find me. I want to go live underneath a rock now. I mean, like, what?
Yeah, no, I'm not in hiding. And in terms of like the metaphysical side of what I do, and including the clean air technology, behollotree.com is my website with information on that. And then I am on most social medias. I have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Although my Twitter, you're going to see my streamer handle, which is the Shakespeare, because I actually have been pretty deep into cryptocurrency developments and software development on that side with gaming in the gaming industry. A lot of fun. So that's what in terms of like what I've been pursuing these days. In the background, the invention is there. You know what I mean? So there's some like evaluations going on. We'll see what happens with that technology. And yeah, we'll just kind of going forward with everything. And thanks for having me on, though, definitely. And yeah, it's and yeah, I hope I brought at least somewhat of a grounded perspective to this subject, because I mean, and when it comes to credibility, right, you're going to find like my cryptocurrency project, in terms of like, I'm not trying to it's not a new coin. I'm actually working with a company called The Sandbox. I mean, very reputable, all this other stuff. You're going to see I really have a patent, all these things. And then look at Stephen Kelley. Anything that comes out of his mouth in terms of credibility, you're going to see who's done what. Even Sarah Adams. What has Sarah Adams done that leads to credibility of what she's doing? Look at what I am doing. I'm very much like grounded person. And so, yeah, like I'm not like these people. Like, so.
Yeah. No, you know what? We spoke a while back. You said I should get on Twitch, and so I've been thinking about that too. I need to get a Not My Rabbit Hole on Twitch, and then maybe join your network, your streams sometimes. So, Jeff says thank you, Jerry, and let me see. We've got, yes, the truth should be enough without all the fluff added on. It gets buried under the crap. This is true. All right, so I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. And make, like, if I'm gonna do like the shameless plug, like the video, subscribe, share with your friends, and also I'm gonna give my little banner out here. If you do want to support Not My Rabbit Hole, here's where you can do it. and or help the Terry Joyce College Fund while I get my degree in digital journalism. So I love going to school, actually. And okay, and so I'm gonna say goodbye, Jerry, and play us out here. I'm gonna share the screen, play a song, and I don't know why it wouldn't. Okay, let me go back to here for some reason. Let's see, which one do I want? There it is. Okay. All right. So good night, you guys, and I'll see you. I'll see you next time. So thanks again, and I'll probably stream this weekend. So or in the next couple of days. Or probably even tomorrow. Who knows? I kind of do a spur in the moment thing, but thanks for being here tonight. Happy summer solstice, what's left of it, and take care. All right, I'm going to stop my camera here now and play some music.
Save my soul. Went up downtown. Went up downtown. Went up downtown. I want to save my soul. Went up downtown. I went up downtown. Went up downtown. I save my soul. I save my soul. I save my soul. I save my soul. Save my soul. Oh, child, save my soul. Save my soul. Save my soul. Save my soul. Oh, child, save my soul. Save my soul. Save my soul. Save my soul. Oh, child, save my soul. 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 Went up downtown. Went up downtown. Went up downtown. I was walking out one evening, headed for the riverside, around us fuss and fight.